everybody, and welcome. In the middle of a grand final series, this, right around the world, is NBL Overtime. Hashtag NBL Overtime to get involved. Hit us up at NBL. Paul Smith to join us. And this man in the house, the super sub, the championship winner from 2018. Hello, Pete Hawley.
Good to be here, mate. Didn't expect it, but the super sub, it's nice to be on the grand final edition. What a couple of games that we had, and we were close to be going 1-1, and unfortunately we're not there.
Studs and Dards, NBL.com.au, the best broadcaster in the game, Liam Santa Maria. Hello to you.
Hello, mate. Yeah, 2-zip. Credit the Kings. Geez, they've done well. That was a classic game too. We'll always remember it. And now we could be 24 hours away from the Kings hoisting the trophy.
Let's get to game one, straight off the top. Let's work through it slowly. The queue was rocking. We're going to get in the crowds very shortly, but it was going nuts. Tasmania, of course, and that fairy tale continued. But Sydney just come out and do what Sydney have done in particular so well in the second half of the year.
Yeah, well, they did. Although, let's talk about this first half, because that was the worry, all right? Are the Kings just going to run all over the JackJumpers? That didn't happen in this first half. They played them tough. Look, at 30-30, midway through the second quarter, it was a one-possession game at halftime. And this has been the issue for the JackJumpers over the course of these two games. They just have a 5 or a 6 minute stretch where things go pear-shaped. And they would have gone into half-time here feeling pretty good. But look at the score now, midway through the third quarter. It was 17-5 Sydney over the next 6 minutes 40 to start that second half. And they just got out on the break, completely locked up the JackJumpers and took control of the game. So we can talk about game two, how close that was. But Sydney's ability in this third quarter was what got this series underway.
And this is what Sydney have done all season long, especially when they're at full strength. And we know game two, they weren't at full strength, missing a key piece, but so deep offensively that they have so many different weapons to step up when it matters most. And credit, as Liam said, the Jackies in the first half. That's the way they want to play. They want to grind it out. Maybe it's ugly at times, it's physical. They just want to take you out of the way you play. And they had that 4 or 5 minute stretch where Sydney just started to take over, and they're so hard to stop. That's why, really, look at any other team in the league, it's the one matchup for the JackJumpers that was never going to be in their favour. Melbourne United, they got that job done. You really talk about offensively, you got to shut down two guys. JLA and Chris Golding didn't play game 3, which makes that easier. Even if you take out Jalen Adams, there are so many different pieces offensively you've got to worry about on this Sydney Kings lineup that it really tests one of the best defensive teams in the JackJumpers.
I actually think JJ's played pretty well in game one. I think they gave themselves a chance. You see, they were 8 points down early in the fourth, and they can make it ugly. Sounds it's too negative of a word, but they slow it down and grind it out, as you touch on, and they give themselves chances in fourth quarters, and that's how they've won some of these do or die games, of which, as they spoke about yesterday, they've had a lot in the second half of the year. They gave themselves an opportunity. I never felt they were going to win that game, but they were close enough, if good enough. And in game one, Sydney were just too good.
Xavier Cooks, 3 assists away from a triple-double. He was terrific. And Ian Clark, 17 points. Jalen Adams goes down the start of the fourth quarter. That's that 8-point margin that you spoke about. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, they've got some momentum here. Can they come back and do something? Ian Clark, huge in closing that game out. And you're right, they just had the answers in the big moments to just keep the Jackies at arm length and take a 1-zip lead.
And then we get to a packed Tasmania, a packed Irwin Centre, My State Bank Arena. I'm living in the 90s still on a Sunday afternoon. And this was everything we expected it to be. I liked your comment. I know Jack Everett's taking credit on Twitter, but I liked your comment around a Euro League game. I'm lucky enough to be in the stadium a couple of times. I don't want to see flares, but you're 100% right. It has that feeling about it.
Well, it does. I mean, and it kind of is, if you're a soccer fan, like Premier League, just the fans, they travel around, they get loud throughout the whole game. They're up and about. You can see it there. And look, the JackJumpers started this game exactly the way they would have liked. And it was Josh Adams. I mean, he struggled in game one. I think he was 4 of 16, might have been 4 of 18 in game one. Struggled to shoot the ball. There's a lot of credit to the defense of the Kings there, but came out on fire in this one. Started with a mid-range jump shot. That man there, Jarrell Munn, I think he started 8 for 8. And it's almost like he's taken a back seat in the media. I mean, I guess the talk of the storylines of how good the Kings are, because you've got the MVP, Jalen Adams is a stud. Xavier Cooks, I think, is their most important player. Ian Clark's been great. Jarrell Munn, he is an absolute superstar. And we forget about it until he does things like this on the regular basis. But Xavier Cooks, again, massive when it mattered most. And this game right here, as fun as it was to watch, had some of the best clutch shot making on both sides that I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah. The shot making down the stretch, they went dry for a couple of minutes, the JackJumpers, but these couple of buckets, that one from Josh Adams, enormous, just keeping them alive, cutting it to 3. And then, of course, he did it again. Oh. He did it again in that right corner on this particular play right here as he comes off to his right. That's a ridiculous shot.
Nothing but net.
Cuts it to 1. Massive play. Still 30 seconds on the clock. So they utes, really smartly done by Ian Clark. And then Dejan Vasiljevic grabs the moment and shakes it for everything it's worth. Huge shot. Massive shot in grand final history. And they close that out. But again, 14 zip run to begin the second quarter. Just a 5 minutes. In fact, it was like a 3-minute stretch. But just a little stretch. The Kings can have stretches because of their talent in this series where they're not what they need to be. They were in the first quarter. In the whole first half, they threw 10 turnovers in game 1. But the JackJumpers can't have that. The talent deficit's too big. And so no imports on the court during that 14-zip run. And the Kings, turned that game around.
And that's what happened in Game 2 of the semi-final series, when Illawarra had that double-digit lead and Sydney went on the run and the game went from a double-digit Sydney opposition lead to all of a sudden the Kings are in front and have the momentum. Couple of things. I think you gave the shout-out on Twitter. Sean Bruce. Sean Bruce was outstanding. When you lose the MVP, and 12 months ago, unfortunately, we've seen the exact same situation. The most valuable player did not play in a grand final series, and it was fairly one-sided. Jalen Adams goes out. It's testament to the depth of the Sydney Kings. Ian Clark, a little easier when you've got an NBA championship winner coming off your bench. But Sean Bruce has had a disrupted year with injury. It took a little while, Chase Buford spoke to it, to get back into the flow of it. He had game 250 a couple of weeks ago. What do you have, 7 assists, no turnovers?
Yeah.
Able to get the ball to the right player at the right time. And again, a little easier when you've got Kings and you're surrounded by absolute stars. But testament to the depth and the way they've built this team is Sean Bruce, again, was outstanding on Sunday in the biggest of moments.
And we talk about adjustments. Credit the Kings for the adjustments they made offensively in getting Jarrell Martin more involved. They came out of game 1 saying it was going to be a concerted effort. Chase Buford said he went straight into the locker room and said, Jarrell, we've got to get you the rock ball, and we're going to do that in game 2. And with no Jalen Adams, you've got to find different ways to create offense. And Ian Clark didn't really get going as much in that game 2, but they got Jarrell the ball in his sweet spots, and you're right. I mean, he was 8 of 9 from the field.
And it's just the depth of the Kings, because as we talk about Tassie getting over the line in the semi-final series, with Chris Golding out in game 3, there's probably no bigger out from Melbourne United. There is no bigger out.
Yeah.
So they put all the focus on Joe Lual-Chul every time he touches it. So say you try and do that to limit Xavier Cook's effect. Anytime he is on the floor, good things happen for the Kings. Okay, but now when they're kicking it out, you've got Vasiljevic, you've got Ian Clark, Jarrell Martin can shoot the 3, Angus Glover. I think only 3 Angus Glover actually hit, got waved off for an offensive foul. But they've just got so many more pieces that step up. Sean Bruce, that's exactly the type of player. Well, that's why he's there. Chase Buford knows that for whatever happens, if I need to trust someone just to play their role, to get us a win, well, I'm going to trust Sean Bruce to go out there. He's going to be hard-nosed on defence. He's not going to force any shots, and he's going to get guys the rock where they need it to succeed. And there you go. That's exactly what happened. And it was really there was like a 3-minute stretch in the fourth quarter with about 4.5 minutes to go, 5 minutes, where it's the first time I've seen the JackJumpers get a bit rattled in some of their shot selection, where they were down 3, down 4. Launching threes early in the shot clock, didn't have to do it. And that was what I was thinking was, okay, the threes down the stretch, incredible from Josh Adams. We hadn't seen that for a long time, of the anxiousness of we can't afford to go down 2-0 on our home floor. This 3 will get the crowd back in it. Miss, you go down, they make a play. Okay, let's have another shot at it. It was just a little bit of a 2-3 minute period that I hadn't seen for a while from the JackJumpers.
That's what grand finals do.
Yeah, it is, but it's also what the Sydney Kings do. You've got to, in all of these, there's kind of two parties to it. And what they do defensively so well is they pack the paint, and they take those opportunities away from you. They're one of the league leaders in keeping you away from finishes around the rim and shots in the paint. So they force you to shoot from long range. Now, it's funny because the JackJumpers,
like that.
They've been in the second half of the season. First half they couldn't knock it in from out there. Second half of the season, a lot of their success has been making those shots, and they were pretty good looks. Like they were good looks from guys who can shoot the rock. And if they go down, that's how close game 2 was. A couple of those go down. This thing's won all going back to Sydney, and it just didn't bounce that way.
It took a clutch shot from a guy coming off a really tough injury. We had 12 months on the sideline to really end this game. Now, I want to just quickly look at the crowd because we are gunning towards, Paul Smith's going to join us in a moment, we are gunning towards the largest grand final crowd in the history of the NBL. And there's only 3 men right now who are disappointed about it. Gaze, Bradkey, Copeland. Because the 4 of all time, Melbourne and the Magic in the early 90s, the 3 of those games, and the Melbourne Tigers v Perth Wildcats in 1993, all at what is now Rod Laver Arena. It was Flinders Park or Melbourne Park. It was called something else, who knows. But back then it was always rocking. But we are on the verge of breaking it tomorrow night, and it's exciting. I was lucky enough to be there a couple of years ago when I think they broke the record with 17,500 LaMelo Ball and the Kings, and they went at it. But a possible deciding game in Sydney. And we know occasionally the Sydney Sporting fans can be a little bit fickle, but they come out in droves. And I don't just mean basketball, I mean all sports. They come out in droves when history and championships are on the line. It is going to be packed to the rafters, Pete Hawley.
It's going to be one of the most amazing things we've seen. And again, the new camera angles in the finals, the one on the sideline in Kudos Bank Arena looks unbelievable. That place is going to be so packed. And look, let's be honest. I mean, we're going to talk about JackJumpers, how they play well with their backs against the wall, must-win game. But this is Sydney's game. With this potential crowd, it's a Wednesday night. It's going to be crazy. Whoever's on the floor for the Kings, they're going to be feeling really good about getting this job done. And it's going to be an incredible spectacle to be able to take in.
All right, I've got 2 questions. In fact, I've got 1 question for 2 different people. I'm going to start with Liam Santa Maria, the best broadcaster and journalist in the game. Is Jalen Adams a chance to play?
I can't see it. I can't see it. They've said, that they were going to wait and reassess for Game 3. My understanding is he's getting treatment every day right now, around the clock, try to see if they can get him up. We'll talk to Paul Smith. We'll find out from him, but I would be surprised.
That's how I'm asking, and I'm going to open our, obviously, interview with Paul Smith, who joins us right now, the owner of the Kings, and extremely proud. Paul, as we welcome in NBL Overtime, is he a chance to play Jalen Adams? Talk to us.
So he's still a chance, right? That's what it's about. He's still a chance. That's all I'll say today.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with this. You must be so proud of what this organisation, both on and off the court in the last couple of years, have been able to do, on the verge of what would be history tomorrow night.
Yeah, I am, mate. I'm incredibly proud. It's hard to even contemplate where we come in 2 years now since the outbreak of COVID, and we all know what happened back there and around that grand final series. It's almost come full circle, and just an incredible performance by the entire club. So many headwinds we had against us at certain times, but a season made up of 12 road wins, 13 win streak. We've won 18 of our last 20 games. We've got a rookie coach that's with us. We've got a rookie player in the MVP that's got an MVP. And we haven't lost a playoff game this year. So it's really important for us to be there, and what we're doing, it's incredible.
Paul, you've got some beautiful artwork behind you right there. Josh Giddy, very, very nice. Speaking of paintings, paint the picture for us of the Paul Smith experience during Game 2. We've seen you in the post-games, in the locker rooms, going crazy with the squad. What was that roller coaster ride like for you the other day?
Well, I didn't go down there. I had a long-standing commitment to a friend of mine to speak at the conference, which I fulfilled, so I couldn't go down. So I watched the game at home, and I think I don't know what was worse, being at home or at the game itself, but it was wild. And, it was such an incredible performance, and without Jalen and to do it on the road like that, the manner in which they did it, it was just incredible. So I know I spoke to Luke Longley after the game. He said the guys in the locker room were absolutely pumped. It was such a team effort, and I think spoke to the depth of our squad and the depth of our club and the strength of our club. No more Violet crumbles, mate. We're the Violet rumbles.
Well, you've shown that. And you talk about the depth with a game, such an important game with no Jalen Adams. Now, this is why we talk about bringing in a piece mid-season. You don't just go and you lose RJ Hunter, you had everything else that went on early in the season. You don't just go and get the best available player, but you've got to find someone that fits the culture that you're trying to create and continue to build with. You go out and get Ian Clark, who embraces his role to come off the bench and help this team. How important is it to find that piece that fits the puzzle, not just to get the best available player at the time?
Look, it's incredibly important, and we all know every club knew how challenging it was in the off-season, during the season, to pick up a player on an import basis at that time of the year. It was really hard. But, look, that's the magic of all this. I don't want anyone to overstate the talent that we applied to find Ian. It was just one of those magic moments where it all came together. Obviously, the connection with Bogues, but his approach from his agent direct to Chris Pongrass started a conversation. And we ran the ruler over Ian, and he expected that. He's a pro. And so we spent a bit of time getting a workout with him, having a look at video. But most importantly, he spoke to Bogues and he said, look, I'm ready. I'm not match fit, but I'm ready to go. And Andrew knew the character of Ian, and that emboldened us to make the decision. It was an easy decision in the end, and the results speak for themselves.
Hey, Paul, your coach, Chase Buford's had an outstanding year and on the cusp of rolling into the NBL and getting it done in year one. But he's found himself in a little bit of hot water in the last couple of weeks. Is that a conversation, or do you have a conversation with him about just trying to curb some of those situations? We seen another one on Sunday where he kicked the LED screen. Are you at all having personal conversations with him just to try and bring it back a little bit or help him deal occasionally with the emotion?
Look, of course I'm speaking to Chase, and, those conversations take place. But, we're in the midst of a playoff run, and you sort of got to run with the emotions and run with what we've got. You can't change the engine mid-flight. So the reality is that, it's about being aware and being cognizant of the circumstances and acknowledging that the behaviour is not great. And he's acknowledged that. We acknowledge that. We've dealt with it internally, financially as well. But, at the end of the day, Chase is what he is, and it's going to take time. It's a process. It's an evolution of a person. We all evolve. We all make rush decisions at various times in our lives. Mostly when we're younger, and we get older, we get a bit wiser. Not so much for me, but for other people, they sort of come on a bit better. So, look, at the end of the day, we've got a winning program. We've got a coach he's a brilliant basketball mind, and we've got to help grow that as a person as well.
A little bit of advice, mate. With that LED screen you've got to replace down there, don't take it down yourself after you said the greatest part of Game 2 was breaking the hearts of all Tasmanians, mate. I'm sure there's a bit of tongue-in-cheek there as well, but in the aftermath of it and everything around what has happened since, you must revel a little bit in the fact you're able to bust that fairy tale.
Yeah, we love it. Look, we love it. And look, we've been cast as the villains in this playoff series, okay? Yeah, we accept that. That's the way the characters have been created. But that's just a script, and we're not playing to the script. We've been sort of put out there as the dark force and all those sorts of things. But the reality is, we didn't choose to play Tasmanian JackJumpers. They made the grand final. That's our job, is to play them and do our job and play as we normally play. And so, yeah, and we like breaking hearts, and we get our hearts broken. We've had it. And my view is, if you come to our court and you win, you can pull your pants down and run around. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. That's the theatre of all this, and that's often lost on people. This is WWE basketball, right? We play hard, but then we go to church the next day together. Really, there needs to be some perspective here. It's a game.
Paul, what do you think of what the JJs have done this season?
I think it's incredible. I'm stunned. I got massive ups for the entire organisation. Of course, we all wrote them off. We all sneered at them and so on and so forth. But, guess what? You're playing the grand final series, and, all that sort of, the gloss goes off that. And, I think it's an incredible story. It highlights, because, I always say sport is the last great unscripted drama in our lives. You just can't script this stuff. You can't make it up. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what I think is the most compelling thing about all of this. But they're on a journey. They've got a second year coming up. They're not going to be treated lightly by everyone. There's going to be a lot of expectations building on them next year. Win, lose, or draw this grand final series. It's going to be a challenging one for them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch them. But it also creates, importantly, a pathway for expansion teams into the league as well, to demonstrate that the league is so evenly poised, the talent is so evenly spread in many respects. This creates an incredible opportunity for the expansion of our league to be a really viable proposition, not one of these 20-year journeys before you actually make the playoff.
What about their fans? There's been a little bit after the game there that Dion celebrated because it was a massive shot. How do you feel about the way in which they're supporting their team right now?
I appreciate their passion. I got no issues with that. I expect that, fully expect that. But show passion towards your team, not aggression towards the opposition because they do something great. There's a bit of this Cinderella story mob I refer to. Everyone wants to rally around the Cinderella story. And I'm not talking about their fans as a whole. I'm talking about the general narrative that's around all this. Is that, you've got to realise that this isn't a fairy tale. This is sport. And these guys are out there playing hard and they're going to do what they've got to do to win the game. And they're going to feel it when they win it. And we should appreciate that. We've had incredible playoff games. We had 2 incredible games against Illawarra, an amazing couple of games against Tasmania. And I've applauded every time they put a dagger in my eye. I've clapped all of them and said, great work. You got to love it. I love it. And that's what it's all about. And I think the Tasmanian fans got to realise if Tasmania makes the AFL, what do you think the Collingwood people are going to come down and do their knitting at the games? It's going to be wild. Come on. That's sport. That's what happens.
Well, it is sport, and we did get to see a little bit of a darker side with what DJ came out and said about it, social media. Social media is different than being at a game, but we see it in all sporting codes now at a venue where some fans, they just can't help but not cross that line. And as an owner of a team, what's the first step we can do in really trying to stamp this out at venue? Social media is something that's going to be harder to really pull back on, but where the line isn't blurry, let's be honest, what you can and can't say. Be passionate, as you said. You can boo. There's even a fine line to trash talk. But when it goes too far, how do we stop that?
Look, I think it's about peer modification. We can try to introduce rules and go to video and operate on hearsay. But I've seen a little bit of rhetoric on the Tasmania JackJumpers social media platforms, which is people saying to other fans down there, this is not acceptable. And that's the important thing. We'll never be able to define the line. The line is always going to be moving. And look, in some respects, you give it, you got to take it. That's the thing. You're allowed. I don't mind people giving it to them, and I got plenty to say on occasions. But I tell you what, Antonius Cleveland flexed me every time they beat us at home, and what can I say? I go, okay, cool, you got it. It's your shot, mate. You do it. And that's what I think. That's where we've got to realise it's a maturation process. As we all, as this league grows and the incredible thing about basketball is the proximity, it's the closeness. You can reach out and touch the players if you want it. That's the really unique and incredible thing about the live experience of basketball. I don't want it sanitized and sort of washed out, but I want to know that there's also got to be some give and take in it all, and there's got to be balance. And ultimately there's going to be points you don't go, and we'll learn that and evolve that as everyone's fans will learn. We'll develop an understanding of that as we go forward.
Before we let you go, mate, if you're to wrap it up tomorrow night or you're to win the grand final series, you're famously a guy who goes and gets a tattoo to celebrate every now and then. Have you got one ready to go?
Not yet, but it's it's going to happen. I can tell you right now. We might let the JackJumpers fans design it.
Hey, mate, good luck. A wonderful night tomorrow night, and good luck. And if it's Friday night, if it's Sunday, whatever, how this plays out, I know you're going to be riding the huge level of emotion of which you continually show, and the league love you for it, mate. Enjoy it as much as you can in front of 17,000 people, and we'll talk to you once it's all said and done.
Pack the queue. Pack the queue.
Pack the queue. There you go. Paul Smith is as passionate as they come, and I just want to touch on the crowd thing. I do have a fundamental issue. And we have, all of us, you and you, both been on the court at different times where fans, and we'll use basketball here, get quite boisterous and verbal, okay? No drama. I have not one issue in the world with that. The issue that people seem to have taken on the weekend is when Vasiljevic hits the biggest shot of his career in the series and goes straight back at these people, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, show a bit of class. So I've got no dramas, and I seen it up close and personal in Tasmania. I loved it. Yeah. A couple on the baseline getting stuck in the Dally having a little chat and having a smile. That's what it's about. It seems to all of a sudden flip the switch the moment that Vasiljevic is like, see you, baby, we're going home with the dub, and all of a sudden they've got no class.
Yeah.
So in that situation, if you want to sit courtside or close enough in an intimate setting and say words, right? And I don't think anyone crossed the line from the boundaries of which I think most of us understand. I'd like to think all of us do, but occasionally there's morons. But you can't just sit back after you've given sprays to the players for 4 quarters and then cry on social media the moment that a young man in the heat of the passion hits the biggest shot in the series and says, see ya, and then call them classless. That's my concern.
Any suggestion that DJ crossed any kind of line in his celebration is absurd.
Agreed.
I mean, you're on the road, you're just telling them, sit down, be quiet, we just won the game, we're going to sweep this thing. That's perfectly fine. I hope he spoke about receiving death threats on social media in the 24 hours that followed. I hope that they weren't JackJumper fans. I'm going to assume that they weren't. I'm going to think the best.
Yeah.
And that maybe they are people who lost money on the game or the like. We don't want to see it in any way, shape or form. He shouldn't have to deal with that. And it was great what he said. I just delete and move on. This is the situation that we find ourselves in as professional athletes. But don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do that. When you get the urge to DM a player because of something that they did on the floor, just leave them alone.
The fact in being in physical, and Paul said it best, the proximity of basketball makes it the best sport in the world because of how close you can get. And you can have those, certain players love if you're talking trash to them, they feed off that. But when you go to the social media and you hide behind the fake account, that's never going to change until we get the identification or whatever we need on social media. The majority of those people sending those death threats are the same ones who want DJ's autograph on those, wants a photo with him. And it's the hardest thing to do is it's when you can hide behind the social media account and not be who you really are. You think it's cool to be able to do those kind of things. You've got to remember that any sports person, men or women at any age, they're people first. And that's the thing you've got to think. Before you press send that's a person just going out there and playing sport for your entertainment. And I'm with you. I don't think it would have been JackJumpers fans on social media. And I love seeing the emotion after a big shot like that from both sides, because I love Tassie getting stuck into everybody throughout their journey. They were crazy at John Cain Arena. I love just as much someone hitting a big shot and saying, you've had your time, this is my time, that's enough. And that is the beauty of sport.
Let's talk game 3.
Let's do it.
Because I heard a tone there in your conversation with Paul Smith, Cam, that you're just saying just schedule the celebration. We've seen this time and time again in sport, where teams see the balloons locked and loaded and the crates of champagne coming in, and they turn the tables. Think back to... was it the JackJumpers in advance of the end of the season? They were under the understanding that all the decals for the final specific decal, was sent to Perth.
Oh, wow.
On the expectation that the Wildcats were going to go in. And they said, no, actually, you know what?
Bring it back.
You're going to have to bring them
I agree.
down south.
I agree. So I thought this would go 4. I thought that Tassie would win on Sunday, and I thought they'd get a game. And they played well enough to win the game, and they didn't. And I'm not saying that it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be an absolute blowout, but I would find it very hard. And I know it's a different league. They've got 2 men within that organisation. Andrew Bogut and Luke Longley have both been in similar situations in the NBA where you roll into a stadium at home, and unfortunately, Luke Longley was able to turn it around and get the championship on the back of it. But I think that they will have an import into sitting them down and making sure they don't get too stargazing towards the championship and the banner being hoisted. I think they'll beat Tassie, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Tassie are going to do what they've done all year and make it tough and a grind, but I think Sydney will sweep them.
Well, 2 things. I think Tassie's really the one team that this is what they want. Like, backs against the wall, must-win game. Like, absolute must-win game. Tassie's the one team you think in the league, well, they could probably... If any team's going to come back from 2-0, it'll be Tassie somehow to do it. If any team was going to do it. I'm with you, though, and I kind of think that the anxiousness with the Kings of being 1 win away, 40 minutes away, I reckon that kind of helps them with the way they play. It's that swagger of going out there. Vasiljevic going out there. Ian Clark, he's played significant minutes in the 2017 NBA championship run. So that swagger, I think, is only going to be beneficial to them. I don't think Jalen Adams plays. I think if it was 1-1, they might have thought about it. But being 2-0, I don't think they risk it. And I still think they have enough pieces. Packed crowd. Again, I think Sydney, that will just only further drive them to play better.
All right, quickly got to check this out. All thanks to JD Sports, the undisputed king of trainers. Have a look at the feet heat on Sam McDaniel.
They're nice.
They are very, very nice. That's our JD Sneaker of the Week. And to get involved this week at JD Sports, the undisputed king of trainers, they're launching the Air Jordan 1 Mid Armoury Navy. I'm excited. It's a combination of Game 3 and no shoes. And the original Air Jordan signature model keeps it simple in a mid-cut and classy in its clean colourway. They launch in full family sizes. That's mum, dad, kids, the entire family. Get your grandmother a pair as well on Friday the 13th via the JD AU app. Now, one thing I can guarantee you, that the series will be done before we get back together. Right? Who right now is the MVP of this series?
Xavier Cooks.
Xavier Cooks?
Easy.
Easily.
Xavier Cooks.
At least we all agree. On that note, we're getting out of here. # NBL Overtime. Someone's going to hoist the trophy. See ya.